In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
Hello again. Well, we're in the Old Testament again. We're in the book of Exodus this time. You'll remember when we were in Genesis that I told you Paul said that the Old Testament is written as an example to us. And so we're going to see that very clearly when we go through Exodus, how the children of Israel, God's chosen people, well, that's us. That's Christians. And they had enemies that came against them, and God fought for them. And we have enemies, Satan and his demons, and God fights for us. So as we go through the Old Testament, we read it to see how things in the natural in the Old Testament tell us how to interact with God and with our enemies in the spiritual now in the New Testament. In Exodus 1 through 5, where we are today, we see that the nation of Israel really grew. And it's been over 400 years, 430 years. And Pharaoh died, the good Pharaoh, and Joseph died. And so the new Pharaohs don't have any idea what Joseph did, one of God's chosen people, to help the nation of Egypt. And so this Pharaoh is making a slave out of the children of Israel. And he's concerned because they're growing so fast. He said, they'll have more people than we do, and one day they'll wage war, and they'll win, and they'll take over Egypt. And so he declared that every boy child should be killed. Well, that starts the story of Moses, how Moses' mother wanted to preserve him, so she put him in a basket and put him in the river. And Pharaoh's daughter saw this basket and said, "What is it?" And they opened it and saw the baby, and she said, "I'm going to take care of this baby." And I'm telling you this story mainly because I want you to see how good God is. Pharaoh's daughter said, "Let's go find a woman from Israel that can nurse this baby that I found." Well, you know who they picked to nurse Moses? His own mother. See, that's how good God is. Well, you know the story. Moses killed one of the Egyptians, and he was concerned that they would come after him, and so he fled. And now he's like 80 years old, and he's out tending the flocks, and he sees a burning bush. And in chapter 3, verse 3, it says this, "So Moses said, I must turn aside now and see this marvelous sight, why this bush is not burned up." Moses could have not turned aside. I want you to see that God doesn't manipulate people. He didn't even back then. Moses could have gone on, but he chose to turn and see what was going on with this burning bush. What came out of that burning bush was God challenging Moses to go save his people from Egypt. Verses 16 and 17, they say this, "Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I am indeed concerned about you and what has been done to you in Egypt." God is certainly concerned about you. God sent Jesus because he was certainly concerned about us. And so, "I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey." See, that's us. He is bringing us up out of slavery and putting us into a land that is flowing with milk and honey. And so God, he says, "You go tell Pharaoh to let my people go." And look at verse 19. God says this, "I know that the king of Egypt will not permit you to go." I know that Pharaoh will have a hard heart about letting you go. Oh, there's a lot of conversation about God hardening Pharaoh's heart. And he knew that Pharaoh's heart would be hard. We see that right here in verse 19. Well, so Moses is obedient, and he goes to rescue the people. And as he's on his way, God shows up and says, I'm going to kill you, Moses. And it's because Moses had not circumcised his child. We'll talk about circumcision in detail when we get to Colossians, but circumcision was a really big deal with God, because at salvation, our flesh is circumcised away. Circumcision, physical circumcision, was the evidence that you are a child of God throughout the Old Testament, and it is the evidence that you are a child of God in the New Testament when we are circumcised without hands. And that's what happens to every believing believer at salvation. Well, in chapter 5, we see as Moses is asking Pharaoh to let the people go, Pharaoh is not about to let them go. They're slaves making bricks, and he makes it even harder on them to make the bricks. Well, this story is in the Bible because as we have faith in Jesus and walk in that faith, the enemy tries to make things worse for us because he doesn't want us being faithful, and he'll do anything he can to try to get us to back out of our faith in God. Well, there are so many similarities between what happens to God's chosen people, the nation of Israel, and God's chosen people, those of us who believe on Jesus. We'll talk some more about it tomorrow. I look forward to being with you. God bless you in your day with the Lord today.
Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world, but give me Jesus.